So here's the material we're going to see today. Okay, it's a mosaic floor. We will see how to make these intricate designs, the stuff that goes in the center, and as a byproduct of our tiling we're going to get the second pattern from over here. Okay, now and yeah, let's start. Before we actually see this graph, okay, it's not everything, we're going to make another graph. I named it arc, although yeah, it's spelled wrong. And here's the first thing we're going to create, because we do not need to have all of this inside our other graph. And we're basically looking into creating this design. In the end, as you can see, it's not perfect, but on the final output, since we are tiling it, it doesn't even show, since it's a very small design after all. So how I've started with this, I took one splatter circular node, okay, and I pretty much set up only these two values, as you can see. Yeah, so number and radius. Then I blended them again with its own self, with max lighten, and I did an increment of 0.05 in each blend you see over here. Okay, so this will start as 0.1, 0.15, 0.2, 0.25, 0.3, 0.35, 0.4, and finally 0.45. If we go more than 0.45, then we're going to start clipping around the edges, and of course we do not want that, or you might want that. Okay, depends entirely what you want to make. Now, and all of this is the same. Okay, max light and everything, and we get with this. Now we can output, since this can be also used as a design on its own, we're going to output it as a mask, and I just name it mask 2. It doesn't matter, since this doesn't output into something else. Okay, so we will use this later, and now let's see how we can make this design. So I take one safe transform grayscale and I put it at -0.5. Okay, and I disable the tiling. Most of these, or pretty much all of them, have disabled tiling, so keep that in mind in case I forgot. Okay, and we pretty much get half of the arc, and we're going to create 3 instances, and these instances will each one this will have x and y 0.5, 0.5, this will have -0.5 and 0.5, so we get the 2 that goes on the upside, and this one will also be rotated by 180 degrees. Then we start blending together with just a copy. We can use the same mask, so it just overrides everything else that will go upon it. Or yeah, even if you use max lighten, it will still be the same, since it's only black and white. Okay, and finally I'm adding both of these together, and we have our design. As I said, it's not perfect, but for the use we're going to do, and usually mosaics aren't perfect, they usually aren't perfect either way. So after that I'm going to pass it into a tile generator. I actually do not need to pass the tile generator inside this graph. We can do the same in in the other graph, but it doesn't matter anyway, since I pretty much expose the x and y, and I think the other, everything else just stays the same settings. I mean by the same, of course, pattern type will be to image input. Okay, and we output it again as a mask, although it doesn't matter what you put in over here, especially if you do not care about outputting in 3D. Okay, so this, as far as I know of it, this will only work, yeah, mostly for your own inconvenience, unless you try to, you know, output them in 3D. But even if you do, you can always, you know, hit view in 3D and then select which one. So let's go to the other graph and let's see where we are over here. As you can see, I didn't bother with creating names since it's, yeah, it doesn't matter since it's only just 2 or 3 designs, but in the final one it looks like it's more complicated than that, but it's actually way simpler. So what we have is the arc graph we have. We're going to create another tile generator, and this one will serve as the mosaic in the center. And in the center you can see that I have 64 by 64, scale to 1, and luminance variation to about 0.59, but you can do anything you want with it. Okay, brick, pattern specific a little bit, so you know it's not, although at this level yeah, it's just 2 pixels wide, so it's not that it shows anyway, but it helps in the final one because we're going to see the base color map. It's going to take all that information and create something that's pretty interesting. Okay, so again, from our arc we can export 2 masks. Okay, one is this and the other is the middle pattern over here. Now I want to place this design on basically the very center. So our design, it looks a bit like this. Okay, the material is tiled 3 times because it will show better, but the final one is this. So I want to put the design of over here, I don't know how you call this, okay, on the edges. So to do that, first I want to create a mask. So I'm going to take a shape node, okay, just a square, then I'm going to pass it through a transformation 2D, not tiling, and I'm going to make it so that I can isolate only a single line, as you can see over here. If we do not want to use a mask, then we can output this one as number one, you know, as only one, then change the resolution, then yeah, it just gets a little bit complicated if we want to just do it this way. Okay, I don't know which approach is more performant, but I'm gonna let you find it out for yourselves. So as I said, okay, we isolate the design and then we're going to use again safe transformation grayscale, and the difference with them, okay, both of them are on 0.5 and 0.5, and degrees, only the degrees are going to vary. So the degrees for the first one will be 45 and for the other one will be the opposite, 135 degrees. We're going to blend them together with max lighten. We're going to get some artifacts over here, but we do not have to worry since, as I said, this goes on the very end. Okay, and everything looks crunched even in a 2K resolution, so we do not really have to worry about it. So we have the base design where we want to place it. Now I want to add a border, so I'm going to go again back and do the exact same thing, only this time instead of using this as a mask, I'm going to use exactly the same approach. Okay, 135 and 45 degrees, blend them together. We can get rid of this, but I think it looks nice in the final design. So like this is you know, it's not, it's shapes instead of being one whole you know, anyway, you understand what I mean. Okay, so we have the border basically for the design, and we will imprint it upon it with subtract. Okay, so you can think of this like engraving the design on a marble or something. Now from that, let me put this a little bit down. Now on the center I want to put the little mosaic stuff we have over here. Okay, so we have our tile generator. We can actually change also, there is a bit of offset random that can go a long way, but yeah, and rotation random. That can make it a little bit more interesting also. But yeah, do not go overboard with this. So I'm going to take this, run it through a transformation to D node, and then I'm going to blend it into the center. So I pretty much eyeball this if I want to pass it on the edges, and we can actually make it a little bit bigger. If you want to isolate everything, you see that it's not perfectly rotated. That might be a problem, might not be a problem. It depends on what you want to make actually, as pretty much everything. Okay, but since this is all man-made, nobody's going to measure it, especially when it has all this information on top of it. Okay, and we have our design on the center. We have the other design on the edges for our borders. Then I'm going to pass it into an inverted grayscale. Now if you want to invert the actual grayscale, you're going to get a whole different color. And of course, because we inverted everything, then that means the next design is going to be removed, since it also uses the white color to imprint on our design basically. Okay, just keep that in mind that there is a lot of stuff you can do with this. Okay, let's invert it back and we get all the other design back. Now from there I will have to work with the outside designs. So where we're going to use the outside design is we're going to go back again into our arc graph or arts graph or whatever. Okay, then we're going to use a transformation to D, and I'm going to tile it by 2 only once, so we have all the designs. Of course we need to get rid of the center, and actually we need to get rid of a rhomboid or a diamond shape, not a rhomboid, in the center. But before we do that, I'm going to also add a little bit of blur, so we start getting a little bit of height separation. Then I'm going to use height blend, which is in substance 5.6. Okay, and we're going to pass again the same graph we have for our tile generator. We're passing it on the height blend. Okay, you can see the offset. It's basically what it does is separates the bottom the bottom input with the above input, so we get something looking like this. We're going to create a mask. To create that mask, I just get the same shape node, transform it around in the center mostly. Okay, cut an area in the center, then use a transformation to D to rotate it, shape it around, so we get. You probably do not need to size this, although you might need to size it a little bit. Okay, but what we're after is this being in the center, since it's a mask, and the rotation that it's I think it's 45 degrees or 45 or 9 45 degrees. Yeah, 45 degrees. Okay, and it's the mask that we're going to use, and we're going to put everything on the sides. Okay, so we have all our design basically, and now the only thing left to do is, just add something interesting in the center, although even without it, it still looks pretty interesting. Okay, so it's just an example of what you can put, and it's just a simple shape. So what I did to create this, I just took a gradient linear one, splatter circular, and I center the orientation, as you can see, and we get this cool design since this is a gradient, and it looks like everything goes beneath everything else. Now I've added also a little bit of microsurface on top of this, so I use black and white spots one, a levels node, warp it around, so we get some noise basically, and I'm using subtract on top of this node, and you can see it on just a few cases. So with transformation 2D again, we're going to simply go and add it with max lighten on top of our design. Okay, you can make something, or use this also as a mask and use this as copy. You can also, it depends what you want to get. This doesn't look exactly that nice at this point, so let's add the levels node and let's see. Okay, I didn't, it's not perfect at this point, but even if the way it was before, it also didn't hurt. So I'm going to just remove this, remove the mask, and just going to keep this to max lighten. Okay, because it looks like somebody has put this inside the other stone, inside the mosaic, instead of just going over it, so it just works with the overall design anyways. Okay, so we pretty much have the same pattern, the base pattern over here, and what we can do now is I'm going to add slope brook grayscale, but you can see that it gets a little bit way too much noisy. Okay, and I'm going to use clouds 1 because all the detail we have up till now, it's very small, especially in positions like this. Okay, inside the middle design and all that, it's very small detail. So with polynoise zoom or any other node that can pass over here, it's going to just blur everything apart. So there's no point to it. So with just clouds 1, it's just one of those rare cases that you need to put a better, a smaller node or a noise like this. Okay, so we start getting a little bit, distraction that makes more sense with the scale of our object. We don't want to use this as it is, of course, because it's still too extreme. So we're just going to multiply it on top of our previous node, on top of our previous design. You can go with a little bit more, it won't hurt. Now this, okay, it just depends on how you want the distraction to look. Okay, you can see that you can get a lot of interesting designs, but even with a slight amount you can still get something that looks worthwhile, especially because we're using a lot of you will see the gradient map in a bit. It has a lot of color in it. So we have our final base design. It has very subtle distraction, and wear and tear. You have to really look into it to spot it, but you know, since these are substance design, can see the slight variations in the pixels, even if you cannot see them with the eye. And you know you can see them because you can actually see them on the final one. Okay. And what will also help pop everything up is, of course, the normal map. Intensity to 20, and you can see that everything from the slow blur just shows so much over here, and it looks pretty nice. I believe it makes for a very natural effect, I believe. Okay, so we have a normal map. We output this, then we have curvature smooth, ambient occlusion. We output the ambient occlusion, and we're going to create our dirt mask. Before we see anything else like color and all that, we can see for the height, we can add a little bit of height, or since it's so much of intensive design and most of it is flattened, you can go with entirely without a height map, I believe. But if you want to add it, just add a histogram range and a height map. Let's see if we go way too much with this. You can see that you get a whole different design. It might be a little bit too extreme, especially this looks like nails at this point, because of the nature of the whole design basically. Although if you can look at this this close, this looks like a city actually. So you know, if you want to make an aerial photo, you can do it. Okay, let's Control Z. Okay, as I said, you can go without this. Now for the roughness, I'm going to invert this because I want, if something is shining, then it's definitely not going to be inside the edges. Okay, so I'm going to invert it. So if there's something shining, it's going to be on the flat areas, and you can see where those flat areas are. In our case, it's like this thing, let's call it marble. Okay, and of course with the levels we're going to fix everything up. You can, you know, go wild with the roughness and the levels over here and have it output it as the roughness. And when you rotate, you can see the differences in the height, in the roughness of the height, and you can see some rogue stuff over here. Okay, simple enough. So we have all this. Now let's see the color. We're going to cheat a little bit in the color, and by cheat I mean we're going to use, because we have, excuse me, so because we have all this amount of information in it and all this grayscale and all that, one way we can paint this using, you know, gradient maps and all before is we can use all the previous mask we have over here. This can also work as a mask, so when we want to paint, okay, all this can be used just fine as masks. However, because we have all this information, we can also cheat. Yeah, I'm saying cheat, but it's not something wild anyway. You can see that our gradient editor is a little bit insane over here. I imagine this is also not the most performant thing you can do, but as I said, I'm more interested in making something interesting rather than making something performant. So what this is basically, you can find a picture of a mosaic and then drag the whole gradient, with pick, drag the whole gradient from one screen to the other, from the one side of the screen to the other, and you can get all this nice little information. And because of that, we end up with something looking like this. Of course, it's really rough to the eyes but just by alone. Okay, especially on the edges and all that, you can see there is a lot of amount of information, and if you look at it for a long time, it's probably going to hurt your eyes. You can see the gradation effect, it didn't work exactly as nice on the center design as over here, but this, since a lot of the times marble or like that, it's usually striated, or depending on the rocks you can have, so it's not really a bother, especially since I didn't care that much about the center design. I only wanted this to look cool, to be honest. Okay, and let's see where this goes. So we have all our color information, but to be able to use it and not pull our eyes out, we're going to add just a little bit of dirt on top of it. So this is after we add the dirt. You can see that everything is crunched down. Okay, we have our dirt mask we created from AB inclusion and curvature smooth. For the color, I just took cloud 3 and run another gradient. Just get some gradient that it's not uniformly everywhere. Okay, this doesn't really matter, or what noise you put on it. And we're just going to go copy entirely on top of it, so we get everything to be crunched down, and it's smoother on the eyes also, even though if you go way too much close you're going to see the edges. But I think the overall effect worked pretty nice, especially if you look at it on the 3D view. Okay, and we output it into the base color. Metallic, of course, just a black color. Let's add the level node also here. Let's make this absolute. Okay, and here it is. So that's about all the graph. Now, to make it look a little bit better, this will also work better if you tile it a few times, because of the nature of the detail. Okay, it's very small detail, so for it to look better, you just tile the whole material on top of it, and you can see that you start getting a nicer effect, basically. And you can see that this is the byproduct of the edges, basically, of our design. So our design is basically this. Okay, so when it tiles, it does another design over here. Okay, so for this, for a game, I believe, or some environment stuff, this will look just fine. Okay, since any fault it has, any fault we have inside our design and all that, it doesn't even show. I don't believe you can show. Of course, you can fix a little bit the mask, so it removes this. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much it. So do not forget that you can also download the substances if you go to my Patreon page. Okay, they are all free. You can download them from here, from there, go to the posts, download them. I also put some of the materials, and I'm going to put some more on Substance Share. Some have already been approved. So do not forget to like and subscribe, so you can be up to date with its new material. And if you also like to support me, then do so on Patreon. And I'll see you next time.